person, not just somebody you want to get a piece of tape about. That you care about them. You care about how their day has gone, especially if it's an older person. You want to find out, like, or a person who's in some kind of difficult situation. Well, how are they feeling today? Because remember, you're interviewing them on a particular person on a particular day. And just like all of us, we have our good days and bad days. We have our days we're feeling confident, we're feeling terrible. And if you have a chance to maybe even say that, gee, you know, I had a terrible phone call just an hour ago. I found out my uncle just died. Well, if you didn't ask them how they are and what kind of a day they've had, you wouldn't even know that, you know? And you might need to talk to them about that for a few minutes before they'll feel okay about going on. They are a person. That's all I can tell you. They're not just a subject for you. Okay? That's the biggest thing.
It's also useful to become a person to them.
Yeah.
To confess some,
That's what you were saying, yeah.
some little thing about yourself, and then they sort of feel like they have, that you've acknowledged, you know, some failure or insecurity, and then they
also,
feel
yeah.
like,
Sometimes in telling them why you want to do this, you're revealing something of yourself that creates a link, a bond right away. You know that term that's often used for interviews, talking heads, right? Which is a very negative term. And I think that's because of often how people are in fact treated. They are talking heads. They're not a person. I think particularly the news media really does that. You know, they slam in there with all this equipment. They bustle around the house. They throw the lights on. I know you guys don't do this. But don't even come close, you know. And then they fire a few questions at this person, and they're out of there. Well, no wonder they get the kind of material they get that has no depth, no reality. You guys don't want to do that. And I actually totally agree with a lot of your methods of keeping the camera rolling and all that.
Ethically,
Just
though,
let it be real.
Don't you start to get into, you know, when the camera is rolling and when the camera isn't rolling? Doesn't the person you're
If the
interviewing
person
have
asks,
a right
I'll
to know?
always tell them the truth.
Sure.
If the person asks, I'll always say, yeah, it's rolling. I usually will say, well, we're rolling now at the beginning.
Do you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm doing what I think of as an interview that's with someone who I'm on the other side of, I'm trying to get somebody, some government official or something. Yeah, I've occasionally let the camera rolling when I know they didn't know that I was rolling. You know, this is the old Arthur Baron trick that we learned from him. You sort of say, well, okay, we're wrapped now, and you say this time, okay, we're done. You know, but they know what that means is we're about to ask the tough question.
By the way.
I mean, if you want to get somebody, you know, who actually what you want is, you know, the capitalist who, in fact, is polluting the waters or whatever. Do you know what I mean? If you want to get somebody. Now, I don't have so many scruples about those kind of people. I really don't. That's up to you guys, though.
Too. I mean, if
You can do it,
they
sure.
ask you,
Yeah.
was that, you know, you can say, I
Yeah.
never told you the camera was off, or whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. This gets into some interesting stuff. If you really need to nail somebody because they won't be straight with you, you can kind of fool people sometimes. It happens. You know, it happens.
It's like in your show last night where the camera was running behind
right.
the
That comes out of
one-way.
we had a lot of conflict. The crew didn't like, some of the people on the crew didn't like that idea, that the good guys would be trapping
I
these
kind of
people.
thought that too when I saw it.
Yeah, well,
I sort of liked it.
I know, I think
They
it's,
do it.
yeah.
You know, I mean, all the time.
People have different reactions. Talking about talking heads again, I just want to say a word about the look of interviews. You know, maybe you all know this stuff already, but, and I sort of wish we could like set up a camera and do this, but we'll talk about this. You know, the typical interview, the look of a typical talking head interview, right, is what? Well, just give me some ideas.
Just
Well,
the head.
Flat light, tight shot.
Right, flat lighting, yeah.
Tight shot.
Up against a
Up
bookshelf.
against the wall, no depth.
Or up, yeah, okay. Up against a bookshelf, up against a living room wall, the curtains right there, you know, whatever. Very boring, very unexpressive. I would make some suggestions to you that you use deep backgrounds. When you're shooting an interview, bring people out a little bit from against the wall. If you're in their living room and their couch happens to be right against the wall, you know, bring them out a little bit. Get them to sit in front of, I don't know if in video, in film you do, like you try to get people in front of a window with a curtain. Can you do that in video without hurting anything? It depends.
Gotta be more
Anyway,
careful.
you have to be more careful.
careful.
Okay. Use angles. You know, put a person in a corner and put them out here. You know, instead of flat up against the wall where the camera's here. You know, put them here and have the camera, you know, looking this way. Even if it looks a little, this is if you're doing a setup kind of interview. Even if it looks a little unnatural to you, hey, the couch is like the chair is in the middle of the room. It'll look great on. You know, deep backgrounds using angles. I think you might look to find things in their background that says something about them. Photographs or a particular piece of art that they might have, a plant, something where you can maybe see out the window to what their yard looks like. I often, in serious interviews, like with Seeing Red, which we're gonna look at later, I often really sort of art direct. I'm gonna interview somebody for 6 or 8 hours. You know, I'll make sure that what the camera is seeing is, every single piece of it is something I think is helpful, is eloquent, right? Says something about that person. So, I guess the key thing to keep in mind, a couple of key things to keep in mind here is, good interviews are the results of relationships, and you are not looking for talking heads, right? Looking for people, characters, right? Okay. Oh, it's almost lunchtime. I'll tell you what, let's do. We're doing pretty well here. What I would like to do is, just before we go to lunch, show you a little bit of Seeing Red. Partly for interviews, partly for the interviews. This is largely what we call an oral history film. You know, a lot of people tell it relating their past. And I also want you to look at it for how we, I'm going to take a sort of a break from this at the moment, how we sort of set up the story. This is jumping ahead into our storytelling skills. How we draw in the audience and how we set up the story. Remembering that here we are, thinking about our idea, right? We started out, we had this idea. We wanted to make a film about American communists. Well, right away, we know one thing. This is a highly stigmatized group, right? We know there's many myths about this group. As soon as we start thinking about it, we realize this, right? This is a group that the very word that they use to call it, you know, to name themselves is a word that's used as a way of dismissing, as a way of labeling people. You're a communist. That's one of the worst things you can say. It's like you're a child molester. You know, you're a communist. So we have to get over that. This film also was made in the midst of Reagan America. It was made came out in '83. Couldn't have been a worse time for it to come out, actually. We also had a big decision to make. Is what our interest? We had to think about what are we actually interested in? What will we be willing to spend the next 5 years on? Was it the history of the American Communist Party? It was born in 1919 as a result of this. It then changed its name into that. It used Trotsky. It used blah, blah, blah. You know, history of the American Communist Party. Or was that what we were interested in? And we realized that wasn't what we were interested in. What we were interested in is the choices that people made. Why did they make the choice to join the Communist Party? And how did that choice affect their lives? And the history of the Communist Party would a little bit come out through that. But the main interest was in those people who had that radical spirit and what it meant to their lives, right? So it became life stories of people as opposed to a history of an organization. And that was a decision we made real early on. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. This is when we sat down in this idea stage. We sat down for weeks and weeks and thought and read and talked about what kind of film we wanted to make. Ready? And we're going to look at like the first maybe, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes. Then we'll go to lunch. Remember, Reagan was president when this film came out. Fast forward. I think there's probably going to be a little one of those bar things. This is on film. You can't see? Okay. Sorry. There we go. Oh, go back, please.
Ending is a happy one.
Okay, this is what happened.
Reagan.
Hello. In the traditional motion picture story, the villains are usually defeated. The ending is a happy one. I can make no such promise for the picture you're about to watch. The story isn't over. You and the audience are part of the conflict. How we meet the communist challenge depends on you. What's happened so far, what is happening now is far from encouraging. And where do you think this is? It's communist-inspired rioting in San Francisco, USA. Look at those faces. The face of communism in America. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Herbert Philbrick.
As I travel around, I still have people say, well, why are you so hard on communists? They're just another political party like any other, and a poor minority at that, and so misunderstood. Well, we don't want them misunderstood, and that's why we're making this film. And that's why I say they are lying, dirty,
Oh, sorry.
shrewd, godless, murderous, determined, and it is not an American political party like any other. It's an outlawed organization, taking its orders and instructions from another government to do everything possible to destroy our government. It's an international criminal conspiracy.
It is a way of life, an evil and malignant way of life. It reveals a condition akin to disease that spreads like an epidemic. And like an epidemic, a quarantine is necessary to keep it from infecting this nation. No man risks his life the way I have.
Oh, listen, I'm sick of that. Many millions of men risk their life, and they could come before this committee and answer the question whether or not they were a member of the Communist Party. And let me remind you that Benedict Arnold was also a member of the Armed Forces of the United States.
You're implying,
Proceed with the question.
you're implying I'm a traitor. No.
You heard what I
am
said.
no
I'm not
Benedict
implying you
Arnold.
come
It
before
is
this
a
committee
plain
and answer the
shame
question.
that a man like me has to be brought here and crucified in the press and everything. Well, you're stealers of bread from children. I have 3 kids.
Mr. Washington,
That's what you are.
will you answer the question, please?
I did. I know about my own.
Hi, remember me? I'm the person who's doing the film. Well, I was calling back to see if you decided yet whether you'd be willing to do an interview with us for the film. Uh-huh. You feel... Yeah. But look, you've been a tenants leader for what, 15 years now? Okay, more than 15 years. And the people know your work, and they trust you. Do you really feel as if they found out now that you had been a communist, that they'd somehow decide you aren't a good person now? Yeah, I know I realize it's a risk. Uh-huh. Okay, well, that's your decision.
It was a decision I had to make. A lot of work I do is either federally or state funded, so, they might say, well, we can't have a known communist. But then I said, if I die, why shouldn't there be a record? How could I have been so good when I was acting and be so bad because I tell them I'm a communist? And I felt that I owe it to everybody who knows me to know who I was and who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
It's not easy on friends and the family, but I really believe it's better to put your cards on the table.
How did you feel sort of proclaiming to the world that you are part of the communist
Well,
movement?
while you were gone, Ben and I talked about that.
Oh, really?
Yes, we did. We feel like a lot of people are going to be surprised if they find out. And I feel those who know us and like us, it'll be real good that they find out if they don't know.
How about those people who might feel negative?
Well, touch it.
Communism, the great American taboo. Yet between the 1930s and the 1950s, almost 1 million Americans passed through the Communist Party of the United States. You'll meet some of them in this film. We've chosen to look at the backbone of the party, the men and women of the rank and file, who were members for many years. This generation came of age in the Depression. They made a decision to be radicals, to challenge the very fabric of their society. How that decision affected the rest of their lives is the thread of our story, and it's by no means a simple story to tell. For many people, this was the first time they have spoken openly about their lives in the American Communist Party.
The party headquarters over on 13th Street in an old loft building, that's where it was. And on the 5th floor was the New York district, and on the 9th floor was the Central Committee. I'll never forget it, see. So I went to the 5th floor. I went down, I went down to see the district leader, see.
And did you sign up?
I was in a party.
You signed up just
He signed just like that.
Was that a big decision to
No,
make?
no, it wasn't any decision at all in those days. Let me tell you the truth. It was just what, with my background, you had to do. Nobody else was doing anything.
The image that I grew up with of the party was it as this subversive organization of people in trench coats and people spying, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know.
Oh, really?
That it's a heavy thing to be a communist. And to say I was a communist that's a fairly strong thing. So that's why I say when you joined, weren't you scared? Weren't you?
No. I didn't see anybody around with trench coats and things.
But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I know, I'm sure I know what you know.
See, that's what I grew up with, is what communism.
No. Not then it wasn't.
They weren't, you know, having mass recruiting of joining a communist party. You had to prove that you were a worthy individual that they could trust. And I thought I was doing good work. I mean, I was the leader of our youth, you know, organization, and but they concentrated on my brother. They weren't recruiting any women, so they took my. There was one woman. She was the section organizer's wife. So they would take him to communist conventions, and they would give him literature, but he wasn't that interested. So finally, they decided they needed someone to take the minutes of their meetings and collect the dues. So they approached me, and I was very thrilled that I had the honor of joining the Communist Party.
Didn't it make you worried that the communists were talking about overthrowing the government?
Didn't worry me a bit. Didn't worry me because I was suffering from the discrimination and the humiliation of discrimination, you know. I'm coming up from the South, and I think, you know, at last freedom. And I walk into a restaurant and they say we don't serve niggers.
You know, a lot of people say, when people are radical, go back where you came from. Well, if I was sent back where I came from, it would be across the street from Kruger's Brewery on Hill Street in Orange, New Jersey. January 30th.
We talk about good characters. I mean, we have really great characters, and I think partly how they're edited is actually I want to go back over a little bit of this. So, is to bring out their, you know, when you first meet them, they're saying something that's very strong, very punchy, something memorable, tough shit, you know. If I were doing what I was doing was so good, why should they be against me because I'm a communist? I mean, some real like simple, direct, great statements. The reason, do we have ability to sort of inch through, like not inch through this, but sort of see it while it's going? Yeah. Play and then this. Okay, great. There's a number of things I'd like to just sort of quickly point out here. We have to go to play first. Okay.
And some people say I brag about being a street nigger,
okay.
but our family was in.
Both of these people, you know, we talked about getting people in a good situation to do an interview. Something I didn't mention is that sometimes you don't want to have them sit down. You want to have them working, washing the dishes.
Really
the
good.
printmaker. That's one reason I wanted to show you him. Doing something. Stretch Johnson, the tall black guy, is actually teaching a class. It turns out, through getting to know him, I found out that he teaches a class where, during the early part of the quarter, he talks about his life. So I thought, great, much better than for us to sit down and interview him about it. Let's just film him interacting with students and telling them that he was part of the Communist Party. And we did. And later you see the class and so forth. This woman, this is actually natural light. It was actually quite beautiful. This is a real simple background, but just the fact that she's not right up against it gives her that real, this is the most simple background. It's a nice, real soft look. When you see the wide shot, you do see a little more of what's going on in her place. We always try to, I think it's good to look at a person's face, you know, and very few of these are flat lit. I mean, this is window light, but it's, clearly there's a full side and a dark side. You often talk about lighting the short side of somebody's face. If you're really going to get into lighting, you know, in this case, this is the short side, right? There's less of this side of the face. So these days, fashionable lighting, if you're gonna really deal with it, would be to light this side. I mean, I think this looks perfectly fine though. But the point is not just to throw light all over the person's face entirely necessarily. It brings out more the character of her face, all these people's faces.
You're saying it's fashionable now to light
Like
the
the short side, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, like the short
Is that
side.
a reason?
And go for rim lighting.
Just what somebody did and everybody liked it?
It looks good, I mean, it looks a little more dramatic. This is, let me just keep, this is obviously I decided that to some small degree that I would be a character in the film. That was because, you know, there needs to be somebody, this is a very alien group with very alien experiences, and we're talking about a mass theatrical audience for the film. And we felt the strategy was that I would be a good kind of interpreter. So you had to know, so you had to sort of see me, see that I was a young woman. I'm clearly not of their age. There was the person asking all the questions, the person making this thing is not a fellow communist, has some of the same misconceptions. You know, I sort of reveal myself a little bit within the film. This is pretty much the most that happens at the beginning here. Deep background is really beautiful. We actually lit this just a little bit, threw a little bit of light on the background. And we also lit him with fluorescent lighting, because he already had fluorescence. And we just constructed these little bars. Maybe you have these of fluorescent lighting. They're real simple to make, and that way if you're amplifying fluorescent lighting, you can do it with fluorescent lighting. It doesn't create sort of weird color things, which you get in film. I don't know if you get that.
Are you color correct in printing then, or?
Mm-hmm. No problem, yeah.
So where are they?
Let me show you.
Wasn't any decision at all in those days. I'm gonna let them
Or
tell
are you
the
being
truth.
followed around?
See it?
No.
Just what, with my
Of course, it's
background.
overhead fluorescence, it's already there. There's right there.
That's
We added that
light
light right
there,
there.
okay.
And that sort of lights up his, gives us a little fill in here.
Yeah.
Mass recruiting of joining a communist party, you have to prove.
Sorry, I'm terrible with
And what mic did you use?
He's got a mic under his shirt. He's got a little button mic under his shirt, and so do I.
Yeah.
You can actually sort of, there it is, yeah, even though he's wearing a t-shirt. And allowing him, he's a very physical person. Well, getting to know him, we can see that about him. He's a very physical person, and we wanted him to be, and he has big, strong arms, and he does his physical job, and we wanted you to see that. Here you notice we tell you, this is the story we're telling. And what we're trying to say is, we're not telling the whole story. We're telling you the story of the, sort of the heart of the party. We're also, this person. Yeah, this woman is so great. And her husband. The little frog over the shoulder, that was, you know, what we're trying to say about these people, you can sort of get the idea, is that
Regular folk.
they're like your grandmas, you know, and grandpas. They have this Afghan. Now, they wasn't actually on their couch. We put it there, but you know, they had it. And the little frog was somewhere else in the house, and we put it there.
That works real well.
Yeah, we felt they should be in like the most homey kind of situation.
Just the way they're dressed, too.
Yeah. Right, that's them, you know, they're real warm, real nice people. Let me see who else we have here. Pete Seeger, whoops, I went by fast.
It's not easy on.
Okay. See, I think with every person has a key, you know, every person, you will find a way to get to them through some key or other. And you'll also find a way to shoot them, depending on who they are. You need to, again, think about them as a full person. Pete Seeger is a musician, and he is most comfortable in the presence of his banjo. And we sort of figured that out through talking to some people and just sort of thinking about him. He's a guy who's grown up his entire life playing music, right? He's a folk singer and songwriter. And so we decided to suggest, hey Pete, why don't you just hold the banjo? And he thought that was great, and he physically relaxed more when we suggested that. And then at any moment, he could just whip up the banjo and sing a song to illustrate what he's talking about, which he does constantly, and it was great. See, if we hadn't thought of that, the banjo might have been put away somewhere.
It's great.
And he wouldn't have thought about it. Deep background, you can't really see it here, but he had this wonderful red stove. This was window light. And this we threw a little light on the background, which often looks really nice. It takes an extra few minutes. You kind of, you know, use some spun glass, or do you have that kind of stuff? To kind of filter down the light so it's not too harsh. Just, if you have a nice deep background, just light it a little bit so you notice it. Yeah.
I'm wondering about camera angles as far as like looking down on the subject or looking up.
Yeah.
And do you change your mind depending on the situation, or do you have
Well,
preferences?
we just look at it, you know, a lot of times I try to be pretty close to eye level, maybe a little higher than eye level, sometimes a little lower than eye level, but pretty much close. I like looking at a person's face and sort of just seeing how the light strikes him the best and trying to get him in an interesting light. He's got, He has a lot of strong light, and this side falls into shadow a lot. And I like to shoot a person at an angle. I think like straight on interviews, I mean, depending on the situation, are often not as interesting as if you look for a good angle. It just takes a couple minutes of just watching. If you're the shooter, you know, watch the person as they talk, see how they express themselves. You get good at it after a while. I mean, something at first you might be puzzled by. First you might want to do some lighting exercises with some people and set up some interviews and just see what makes their eyes really stand out, what angle's good for that.
What do you think about the technique 60 Minutes uses a lot? Maybe you can get letters complaining, it's like their camera's looking up someone's nose.
So close, yeah. I think that's rarely useful. I think anyone will look ridiculous when photographed like this. I mean, anyone can be made to look like they're shifty, nervous, potentially dishonest, you know. I mean, if there's a reason for it, like the end, if it bleeds, it leads, it gets in pretty close.
Yeah.
And the filmmakers don't feel good about that. They feel like that was a mistake because they didn't need to do that. They'd rather have her hang herself, you know, than have the camera seeming to be making that kind of real heavy-handed comment. That is real heavy-handed filmmaking. And there are occasions when you need to be heavy-handed, but that's rare. You know, it's like a spice that you use rarely.
It only takes about 30 minutes with 2 or 3 lights, if you have a monitor available to you and your camera, to just take the lights and move it around and watch the TV set and see what happens. It's like a black art when you don't try it, but as soon as you try it once, it's like, oh yeah, this puts a shadow, this ain't gonna work, this works fine.
Yeah, if we had a little bit different room set up and all, we could do that. It's easy and fun to do. Anyway, so let's see, let's go back a little further. Pete with his banjo. This woman, again, an angle on her. She's not straight on. She had a certain kind of quiet intensity about her, and I felt by sort of shooting across her and watching her eye contact with me, you would get her intensity. Her intensity was quieter, and she didn't have the humor of the woman who said tough shit, the kind of grandmotherly humor. She actually is in the Communist Party, and I love that starting out with her back and us just walking. It's a little bit of a mystery. Are we going to actually see this person or not? You know, and you kind of see that she's little and I'm tall and. You know what I mean? It makes it sort of a little more of a realistic situation. It reveals a little more. Let's see. And you see our setup, which is to throw all the myths up, but you really fast and hard. And then we spend the whole film debunking them. But again, that was our strategy. And that piece of Ronald Reagan, when we got that, we knew what the beginning of our film was. And it's really wonderful when you can figure that out right away like that. Okay. So let's talk about the end of lunch. Say an hour. Okay. You all know what places, and we'll come back and we'll talk about what you do once you've gathered all this stuff. And think of questions you might have. Yeah. Yes.
Did everybody sign the clip board?
1 hour, folks. Okay, we're going to start in 1 hour.
35 minutes.
Oh, I can
And the clips were rain was considered rain was in my mouth. You know what?
See, it's nice.
It's leaving over large amounts of
Yeah, already I did. We're spending I told him to stay fairly quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of you are really experienced. I was telling Mary, I'm kind of worried on people, because there are also people who've never produced it, and I'm sort of going, like, I'm going underneath your already developed level. But hopefully you'll pick out.
Okay, we're back now at the documentary production workshop with filmmaker Julia Reichert, who's just shown her film last night at the Crystal Theater, Emma and Elvis. She was also a documentary producer teaching us about documentaries this afternoon.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, back to work. We're going to start even though everyone's not back, but that's their problem. Okay, so here we are. You know, we've talked about, oh, by the way, I wrote 3:30 on here because we are going to go after 3:30. I know this was supposed to end at 3:30, and I should have told you from the beginning of the day because I knew we were going to go past 3:30, and I forgot. I don't know exactly how long past, not hopefully hugely long. But anyway, that's why 3:30. Okay. Just telling people we're going past 3:30. So we've been talking about deciding on your idea, refining your idea, challenging your idea, starting to gather, doing your research, your interviews. We talked a lot about interviews. We're going to talk a minute more about interviews before we plunge on to talking about actualities. Two final things I want to say about interviewing. There's, obviously, I talk for hours about interviewing with my students, but kind of boil it down here. You're looking for engaged material, right? You're looking for stuff where the people on the screen are clearly care about what they're saying, are being articulate, are being passionate as much as possible, are connected. You know the difference between a good, when you watch an interview that's good and one that isn't. When the person is actually connecting with what they're saying, right? That's what you're looking for. And all the things I said before, just keep those in mind as you go out there. I didn't say too much about. Someone asked, what do you do if you've already sort of talked a lot to the person, you already really know them, and how do you make it fresh? How do you go back to where your audience is, which is they don't know this person at all. They don't know step one about what they have to say, right? How do you go all that way back? A simple suggestion I have for you is take somebody in who they've never met to sit with you and to maybe even ask a few of the questions, because then they'll tend to talk to them as a first-timer again. I've used that method effectively often. I ask my production assistant to sit with me while we're doing the interview, or I introduce them and I make sure the person is relating, the subject is relating to them too. That can work wonders. Okay, follow-up questions. I didn't talk too much about that. I think that's very much a key to a good interview. I remember I said don't just sit there and go down your list of questions, right, no matter what they've said. You want to be flexible. If they bring up something that really sort of intrigues you that you were not expecting, remember this journey will take many turns, take a fast note. If you're not quick on your feet enough to go right back to them on that, you're not quite sure what you want to ask them, but it's really stuck out. Take a real fast write down a little fast word about it and be thinking about how to bring that up later, right, in a follow-up question, something that intrigues you. Usually, your list of questions is not really adequate, right? You need to probe deeper. You'll be ready for any surprises that come up, and you'll formulate those into follow-up questions. Sometimes the interview will come out all in a different order than you expect. You think you're going to do the person's life chronologically, or you're going to present the information chronologically or in some logical way, and they'll just start right in talking about point 4. Well, you don't say, no, I don't want to hear that yet. You go with it, right? You go with it, and then you have to be a little quick on your feet. This is something you get from experience. Sometimes the most useful questions are, oh, really? Tell me more. Is that true? Uh-huh. Or just nodding. Looking at them attentively and nodding. Very often when people say something sort of provocative, and they won't say any more, you can just kind of look at them. And then they'll, surprisingly often with that silence, they'll keep talking. Sometimes people make the mistake of doing all the work for the interviewee, right? Of phrasing questions in a way that all they have to say is yes or no. Giving them 3 or 4 choices. Well, do you do this for this reason or this reason or this reason? What is it? And they'll, instead of saying for themselves what the reason is, they'll pick one of your reasons and talk about it. Don't do all the work for the interviewee. If there's a silence, don't feel like you have to jump in and ask the next question or reassure them by taking over again. just hang back and wait. Sometimes that's really the best strategy. And sometimes, again, just those little words, aha. Why? Why do you say that? I'm surprised to hear that. Just little reactions like that are extremely valuable to keep the interview going. Of course, there are times you have to control the interview. You have somebody who goes on at the mouth, right? Particularly, you have a lot of experts, judges, professors, scientists, and so forth, who just talk on and on and on. And you have to control the interview, especially if they're talking in a way that is too technical for your audience. You have to say, wait a minute. Could you say what you mean by that? Could you give me an example, a specific example of what you mean? Could you make it more real? My audience really isn't very technically oriented. You have to explain that for me. You have to jump in. Sometimes you have to just plain old interrupt them if they are just these intense talkers. You have to just sit right up in your chair and cut them off. Don't be afraid to do that if the situation calls for it. Okay. Plenty on interviewing. Let's talk a little bit more about getting actualities. Under the gathering mode here, I have a few things I'd like to say to you about that. Whoops. Ooh, dear. I want to lose my notes. By actualities, I mean, things like demonstrations, somebody doing something, somebody getting up in the morning, cooking breakfast, a potter making a pot, an artist doing their work of one kind, somebody cutting hair, a kid playing, actualities, right? Not interview, not something you've set up, watching somebody do something. Coming out of the tradition of cinema verite or direct cinema. Video is a great medium for this, by the way, because you can just run and wait for the significant moments. With film, of course, it's so expensive, you have to stop and start the camera all the time and be constantly evaluating, is this worth it? With video, you don't have to do that so much. So you want, out of actualities, you want a real feeling and look of reality, with as little intervention from you, the director, the producer, the camera crew, whatever is possible. You try not to say, could you move over a little bit while you're doing that, if you can help it. Because then the person begins to perform for the camera. What you don't really want generally is somebody performing for the camera. So things like asking them to move over or wait a minute or whatever. If you have to do it, you do it, but you try not to. You just, okay. So you want that kind of material. You want to look for the significant moments, right, which are often not the ones that you expect. Sometimes it's very interesting, let's say, to watch like a politician, and you're doing an interview, and they're doing their thing, and then their assistant walks in, and the politician barks at him, or treats him in a really insulting manner or whatever. They get a phone call, whatever, and that's actually a very significant moment. That's when you really find out about the character of that person. Right? Sometimes a significant moment is not what you're expecting. I could give you so many examples of me blowing the most important moment, but I won't trouble you with that. You also want to look for eloquent images when you're shooting actualities. Eloquent, sometimes very specific images. Sometimes you're watching, let's say it's kids playing or someone, an artist doing some work, whatever. Sometimes it's nice to stay on a nice wide shot. You can see a lot with that. You can move around pretty well with a nice wide shot. You can get in close. But sometimes you want to really go in for a detail. You want to wait a moment, go in on telephoto, and watch their hands at work. Or watch, they have a beautiful fish tank with some interesting fish. They have an herb garden. They have an interesting plaque on the wall. I mean, interesting, significant details. Sometimes they're called cutaways, and I think just like talking about talking heads, that's a way of demeaning what those are. Just think, oh, we need a few cutaways just for editing. No, you don't just need them for editing. You need them to explore that person's character and personality and environment, right? Or to explore that situation. Maybe you're shooting a demonstration. Maybe there's an interesting shot in just, the stack of placards sitting on the sidewalk. Maybe there's an interesting shot in the way, a mother with a banner is dealing with her 2-year-old who's crying. Maybe there's a little confrontation going on between a policeman or a policewoman and one of the organizers. It's not the big action, but it's an interesting side action. You always have to keep your as you're doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, keeping your eyes and ears open for what else is going on, and what little details there are that will help you really tell the story of that situation. It's one reason I think it's great to have a second person on your crew too, is that they can be looking around and helping you out. And obviously you want decent sound and decent visuals. You want to, I always think, have a separate mic. want to say a little bit about getting decent visuals. Do you know about, the wedge? Have you heard this concept, using the wedge? No, maybe you think of it differently. Very often when people are going to shoot something, like I'm going to shoot you guys, or you're going to shoot 2 or 3 people talking or whatever, people tend to line people up, 1, 2, 3 in a straight line, and shoot them flat. We tend to think as if the world is like a stage. There's a proscenium. We are standing back here observing it, and it's out there somewhere. Well, in film, with film and video, really what you have is not just this little square out here that you're shooting, right? It's a wedge. Forget about this guy. And you have all this space in here, from the point of view of the camera to whatever is the background. You have all this space. Things that are happening right up close to the camera and things that are happening way in the background are often very interesting juxtaposed with one another. Right? You want to look to see how, if you can get in a position like, I could shoot you guys like this, right? You're all stacked up. Or I could come in here, and I could look at you right close up, and you here, and you in the background, and you over here, and I've got a much more dynamic shot, and I even see the camera over there. I have a much more dynamic shot by using the wedge, using the full capability. Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you have preferences as far as a wide angle or narrow angle? Or?
I think that's a creative choice that you have, depending on the situation. I like a lot in shooting actualities to use like a nice wide angle, and to move in close if you need to. And you guys use small format video, so it shouldn't be an issue for you. I mean, we have a big old 16mm camera, it can be kind of intrusive to get in the middle of people. But with these little video cameras, it's great. Move right in on people. Sometimes in shooting details, I like to go for a little more telephoto. Because what you're saying is, here audience, you're communicating something to your audience, right? This is a little detail I want you to look at. This is another little detail I want you to look at. Now here we are back to the main action in a wide shot. But that's just me. You'll all develop your own interesting styles of camera. Kurosawa, who's a great film director, Kurosawa's wife, I should say, always says she can tell when he's about to be shooting a film because he sits at the breakfast table with salt and pepper shakers. I don't know if you can really tell this. And he moves them around, and he goes like this. He moves them around, he goes like this. He's figuring what's in the wedge. And he's known as being a great visual stylist, right? Great sweeping imagery. And he is very conscious of using that entire space. The close, the medium, and the far away, right? And the interactions between those. And if you don't see it there, move around so that you can get it. It makes for much more eloquent stuff, right? I mean, it's much more interesting to look at you guys like this, I can tell you, than it is like this. And this is just a simple example. So always, think about the wedge as you're shooting. Okay. I think something that I see a lot in access work, in all kinds of work, really, photography or whatever, is people don't get close enough. People really hang back and they use these big old loose medium shots, which are okay for establishing stuff, but you know who Robert Capa is, photographer?
War Images.
War Images, yeah. He took some of the very wonderful shots of the Spanish Civil War and World War II, early Vietnam. He was actually killed during the early days of the Vietnam War. He said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you aren't close enough. I always pass that little thought on to my students, because I think it's quite true. Whether you're taking the shot of the family at the beach, or you're shooting an interview or you're shooting an actuality or somebody doing something, don't be afraid to get in close, right? Okay. Now, there are limits to that. We talked about the extreme close-up, which can tend to exaggerate people. Particularly, I think the extreme wide-angle close-up, anyone looks like an idiot in an extreme wide-angle close-up, pretty much. That's my feeling, okay? My partner, who's a video maker, completely disagrees with me on this, but that's how I feel. While you're shooting, keep shooting, keep thinking all the time, evaluating what am I getting, what's good, what else is going on. If you get a good shot, this is the editor in you that should be talking. Let's say you get a nice close-up, an eloquent close-up, or you're shooting a scene where people are interacting in an interesting way. Hold it. Don't get it. And okay, I got it. I'm over here. for editing purposes, I would say hold it for anywhere between I always count 1,001, 1,002, 1,000. So I know that I'm really doing it, because in the heat of the moment, you can think you've got 7 or 8 seconds, and you've really got 3 seconds later on, and you can't even use the shot because it's too short. So train yourself when you're shooting to count 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. I always try to count, if something good, up to at least 7 before I will go for something else, to have a usable shot for editing. Okay? Sometimes even further. Look for not just close-ups of objects, details of what people do, the way they look, the way they touch each other. Use dynamic angles, deep background. I talked about having your interview subjects up close and having lots of space in the background. Get people away from the walls. We talked about all that. Okay, that's just a few words on shooting actualities. Now, oops. This is really sort of speeding through all this stuff. Okay. Where does this next one come in? Oh, I think this next one's going to come right now. We're just talking about the look of stuff now. Now, I've picked this piece because this is an excerpt from a 30-minute documentary called Cowgirls. Some people might have seen this. It was made by Nancy Kelly and Kenji Yamamoto, who also made 1,000 Pieces of Gold many years later, which I think many of you have probably seen, a feature film that was actually set here in Montana. Asian American woman's story, historical film. This is an earlier film they made. It's about three little portraits. It's a very, very nice piece. I think we're going to leave a copy of it here. It's a very, very nice piece. If you're interested in doing portraiture, right? You know, looking for interesting people's lives and telling about their lives. This is a great film to see. I'm only going to show you the last of the 3. There's an older woman who owns a big ranch. There's a younger, really incredibly, both gorgeous and really strong woman.
That's the one,
Who manages.
This woman is the most incredible woman in the world.
Well, you'll see her. Okay, I'll back up a little bit. She's amazing. I was going to show the third one. I was going to show the third one, which is about the two little girls.
She's like bad.
She's bad, right? She's bad. Anyways, I was going to show you. I'll back up and show you a little bit of this amazing woman, and then show you these 2 little girls. And maybe we'll even have to sort of talk a little bit through it. It's very nice for portraiture. It's very nice for looking for eloquent images. It's very nice for following action, using dynamic angles. The whole notion that sometimes you have to hang back and not intervene. There's a moment here where you're just sort of dying for the filmmaker to help the subject, you know, but they don't, and they get a great scene out of it as a result. So, is there any way just to have a little light in here, or is it sort of all or nothing?
You need a flashlight?
Well, that would help. I was thinking I might do a tiny bit of stopping and starting.
Do you have a flashlight?
It's so dark. That might help. Let's try that. Is this on?
Yeah, it's on, but not playing.
It's not yet.
I know it too, and I know
Robert
it.
Kappa.
Robert.
Kappa. I think, by the way, any of you who are into camera work, look at still photographs.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you that enough. Look at Henry Cartier-Bresson. Look at Robert Kappa. Look at Bruce Davidson. Look at, I mean, as I could give you, in fact, I think I have a list here. Go to the library. I'm sure those books are there, and just spend some real time looking at what the images that they get.
Ansel Adams.
I don't tend to recommend Ansel Adams. His work is beautiful. His work is so much, I love it too, as art photography, but I'm thinking more of documentary photography for people who are into getting into the action. The way Cartier-Bresson, you know, uses the incredible use of triangles that he has in deep space. Anyway, Ansel Adams' work is great. But I would look at documentary photographers' work, just for eye training. Okay, so we're going to try this light thing, right? I'm so bad with this kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm ready. I can handle film, but video baffles me sometimes. This is, oh, where's the sound? Okay. There. Yeah, let me just go back.
Yeah, the haystack shot.
Oh, I know, that's at the very beginning, that's like 20 minutes back.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I can't. What are you trying to do? I'm trying to be good boy. I'm gonna get a little. What's the name of this? Where is it? Cowgirls. This is taking place, Montana, Wyoming. I wanted to bring it partly because we're out here. This is just a little lyrical sequence that obviously the makers sort of decided they would like, and they went out and shot it. Okay, let's go from here.
comes into here, she has to beat an 8.92.
This is an actuality, obviously, of her.
Real competitive. 2 good turns down, and she's going to do it. It's going to be close. We can have a really tight room for the record.
It's too loud, yeah.
Again, guys, the great competitor Molly Harding winning the championship.
I get baffled by this. There she is. This is obviously set up. Nice music, a little lyrical ending moment. She's riding solo, which is part of her life.
This way of life is very important to me. I've gotten up in the morning and felt really down and thought, what in the hell am I doing here? You know, what is the future? And I've gone out, you know, sort of dragging, got the cows in to milk. But by the time I was through with chores, I thought, all right, you know, this is why I'm doing this.
Beautiful
like
close-up.
this.
Right at the moment she says, I like this.
Hopefully that won't change for me.
And you're looking into her character here. Okay, and that's the end. Setting the scene.
I love all the roar and the rattle, the lure and the billow of cattle, and I love to see the cowboy at the rodeo.
See a little detail. This is what I'm talking about. It's very nice, right?
And I can see Larry swinging.
And this is an actuality we're watching now. Getting ready in the morning. Our subjects, it's not mom, it's the kids. Notice how they really follow the action here in a very nice way, unobtrusive way. It's on a tripod,
We've got
I think, in
two
this case.
distinctively
Maybe not.
different daughters.
No, it's not. Sorry.
We've got an older daughter in cricket that's very compassionate, very caring kind of an individual. She has ambitions of being a nurse or a veterinarian. And we've got another daughter in Nandi that's much younger and definitely a free spirit. And right now she's betwixt and between being a rodeo clown, a bullfighter, or a buckaroo somewhere out in the Nevada desert.
So nice and silhouette, kind of almost silhouette.
I want the girls to enjoy the full gamut the ranch has to offer. I make it more of a game at this stage. I think they've got plenty of time, the rest of their adult life, to work at it. But I don't want them crawling under a pickup and trying to repair something mechanical. If they want to do that later, great, let them do it. But now it's working with the animals, feeding their calves, feeding their colts, and just general light ranch chores. I want them to experience the whole gamut of it. Good, put it in there.
See a nice
Squeeze it.
dynamic angle there.
Then release it, and then pull it out. Give it about a second, release it, and pull it out.
The wedge.
Okay?
A lot of times I think I ask them to be maybe too grown up and not let them be little girls and squeal and giggle and things like that. And I'm sure that that's a fault of mine maybe, because you only have so much time to be a little girl and you have all your life to be grown up and responsible.
Walk right up here and focus right in. Right straight in. Yeah, focus straight in. Work. Here. Yeah.
I like petting cows and starting them. Mm-hmm.
Do you like to ride all day?
Sort of.
What about this job?
It's kind of good and kind of not. When you get cow manure in your face, but it's not very good. But when you don't, it's good.
Pretty simple? We should all have life for that simple.
This looks okay. Hey girls, push
Lift them up a little bit. Take them. Move them right up.
This sound is obviously from some other situation, right? It's added on here appropriately.
Be real quiet till they line out and know which way they're going to go. Girls, spread out there. Those cows don't need that one hole plugged. You can do both holes. Go ahead, Cricket, and take them on up there. Lead them right up there, Cricket, toward the gate. Just.
I hate getting yelled at the most. You're never in the right spot. You're always someplace wrong, and it ends up being a longer day than you figured. That's when most of the family gets yelled at.
Mom, will you help me up? Go ahead. See what you can do. If you can't, I'll help you.
Isn't this great?
They yell at me a lot because I do things wrong because I'm little and Cricket. I want it. You look.
I just wanted to point out to you, I don't know if you're sort of noticing how the voiceover is kind of coming in and out. This makes fairly heavy use of voiceover. In fact, some of us, I might say it's a little too much voiceover. I'd rather watch more of it. But you notice how they're very careful in key moments that are really wonderful moments, like the mom, you know. They pull back the voiceover, and look, when the girl is shooting the injection into the cow, they pull back the voiceover and let the natural sound come up. Because those are really just very eloquent moments, and you don't want to throw voiceover or music or anything over that. And as you get better at editing, you'll be able to see in your footage what are really just the gem moments. And you don't want to screw them up. You want to let them play, right? That's partly why this is so great. If it was just straight voiceover over everything, talk, 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 it would really bother us, right? Okay. This is the moment when, of course, I said you want maybe the filmmaker should have helped her up, but no.
And I missed a scored, but I used to be 6 and now I'm 7. I can do a lot of things now.
Okay, come on, Ed.
There's also, you know, a really nice little connection there between, she just finished a nice little piece saying, you know, I was 6 and now I'm 7. I can do a lot of things now. She gets on the horse, and then we see her doing this. Very nicely edited. Again, it doesn't trumpet itself. It's just very, very concise sort of editing.
Little girl underneath this big.
Yeah, well, that's impressive in and of itself, right? Just talking about the structuring of this, though.
And I didn't feel that there was a lot of danger. You know, they just don't react the same as if they're relaxed and confident about what they're doing. You stuff on your toe? Did I get your big toe or your little toe? Get your big toe or your little toe?
Just a beautiful shot.
How's your toe, Nandi?
Fine.
Doesn't hurt anymore, huh?
No.
I'm sure if he thought he was stepping on his little buddy, he wouldn't have done it so hard.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to stop on it hard. That kind of hurts.
You think it's going to turn blue and purple and black and fall off?
We have radio mics on them, actually.
Do you know what kind of birds those are? No. Chickadees. Chickadees. Can you say chickadees?
Chickadees. We're supposed to do it first, the homework first, and then we can do our other jobs. Like Mom says, do your homework first, and then you can do a lot of other fun things. You can.
Did you get all your homework done?
No.
There's a real intimacy to this scene, partly because it is shot pretty close up.
What's Mrs. Jordan going to say?
I don't want to know. We can put this old cowboy hat on the snowman too, said Jack. I'm stronger than any of the boys. I think the boys, they like more of the town girls more than they do us. I think the town girls, I think they're a little bit prettier. I don't know why, but they have a little bit fancier things and more things.
It's a great subject.
Actually, all my kids that are boys think girls can't work on ranches. I think that I can do better than boys on a ranch. But I want to know, if you know, tell me, why we wear pants and dresses, but boys can't wear dresses. We wear both, and they don't. Do you know? Wonder why God didn't make both of us the same.
That's the first portrait, yeah. That's the second one. She was tobacco too. Okay, can we get the light on? It's a really lovely piece. I sort of hate to tell them. Yeah. I know some of these people actually.
The shot on the top of the haystack, I thought that was a man. We didn't see this time. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a professional fighter up there.
Yeah, with the muscles,
Yeah.
the arms, yeah.
Yeah.
Get your pens out. Cool. Okay. I gave this to my daughter for her 10th birthday. I bought her a copy of it. It was from Nancy. $25 was a great birthday present. This is not a piece this is a different, it's not an issue piece really. It's not an experimental piece, it's a portrait. I think there's a real strong feminist side to it, a real strong kind of role modeling side, which I find, this is a wonderful piece to show to teenage girls. It totally or boys, I suppose, too. Totally amazes them. And it never quite trumpets, well, here we are, a film about cowgirls. It just sort of tells these people's stories and lets you into their lives. You know, and it's just a lovely little sort of lyrical piece. So, I wanted you to see that. And I wanted you to look at the use of the camera, particularly here, in following the action and following actualities and getting in the right place and finding the eloquent moments. You saw a little bit of the kind of use of details. There's that throughout. I hope you get to see this piece. We're leaving a copy of it here, right? Which would be for just you to look at, not to dub and so forth. I'm sure Nancy wouldn't mind. Okay. So here we are. We've gathered everything, and of course, here at this point, you can also think about what music you don't make final decisions at all at this point. But you start thinking about: do you need headlines? Do you need photographs? Is there music that might really help tell the story? Like these cowpoke songs, cowgirl songs, are really help tell the story at various points. They use sort of throughout. That can be part of your research. They use some archival material at the beginning. Think about that whole palette, and as part of your gathering. Okay, now let's move on to. We'll go much quicker from here on, I think. Let's hope. The beginning of that analytical phase, right? Logging. Now by that I mean not logging trees, but logging this vast amount of material that you have. I hear some producers who have been through this. Oh no, not logging again. But yes, this is extremely important. Now I suggest, usually doing a documentary, you might have several different interviews, several different actuality pieces. I would suggest that you don't wait till you're all done with everything to start your logging. The reason is, not that you end up with so much to do, not at all. Because remember, this is not just rote logging just to do it. This is your beginning to apply your powers of analysis, of selection, right? And as you begin to analyze your material, new questions will arise. will begin to guide your research more, right? So log them right away, right? As you're listening, you'll think, oh, I didn't follow up on that, I should have. Or, oh, they said this, And then half an hour later, they said that. Gee, there's a connection there, Or maybe you will remember that you interviewed somebody 2 weeks before, and you thought they said something similar, but you don't have it logged yet, so you can't really find out, without going back and playing the whole thing. So log right away. Now here's what I mean by log. Log your tapes. What I suggest people do, and I'm really a fanatic on logging, is first of all, you watch or listen to the whole tape again, and just watch it, and maybe jot down what really stands out to you, and what seemed to be just gem kind of stuff. By that I mean strong stuff. It can be either right on the point of your subject, your idea. It can be something funny that maybe isn't on the point. It can be something that's passionately said that is or is not on the subject. It can fit into your idea or not. Think about that. Then, second time through, get out a notebook with a clean sheet of paper, right? I would keep as a logging notebook, probably. Clean sheet of paper, several sheets of paper. Right on the top, the name, however you want to do it, the name of the interviewee, the date you interviewed them, that's actually rather significant that you write that down. And probably your cassette number or something that will make sure this cassette goes with this log. You may interview that person 2 or 3 more times. You don't want to have any confusion as to which time this is, right? You don't want to just put the subject, you want to put the person's name. Anyway, all these details. This is going to be your log. Then you're going to listen to this piece again, only this time much more slowly, much more carefully. And I guess with video what you do is you write, there's a count, with the counter you can get real-time numbers, Randy tells me. And so I would say that's probably your best way of keeping track of where various statements are, is with the real-time numbers, not the counter, because counters will be different. You put it in a different machine, and the numbering system will be totally different. So if you can get it real-time, that's good. If you're at home, you can use a stopwatch, I guess. I don't know exactly how you do it in video. Is that about correct? Yeah. Okay. So you start listening. You figure out, okay, what's the first usable byte? What's the first usable bit of sound? It may be a while before there's something really good. When you get to that first usable byte or bit, stop and write down verbatim the beginning of the statement. Verbatim, word for word. You can even write the whole first sentence if it's not too long. Word for word. Okay? And then keep listening. Well, they're still on the point. Yeah, it's still pretty good. Well, they kind of digress there, but still on the point. They come back. Then they stop. And then you either raise another question or the interview goes a different direction. Okay, that statement is now over. It could be one sentence or it could be a paragraph. It could be whatever, but that statement is now over. Okay, then go back and note what you think of at this point is the end. Write down word for word. Again, the end of your statement. Word for word. In the middle, what you can do is just sort of, what I do is summarize. If there's something that is so well put that you're going to use it as some kind of cutting point later, you think you will, write that down verbatim also. But you can sort of summarize what's said in between. This is how I do it anyway. I have friends who do everything absolutely verbatim. This would drive me truly crazy. But, okay. Now, do you know why I'm really suggesting that you write it down, the beginning and end at least, down verbatim? Do you know why? Or are you fledgling editors?
You can find it.
Well, not just so you can find it. You can find it with the counter numbers. But that's not why.
It's for editing.
What do you mean for editing?
It gives you a reference of what it is
you know what you got
so
there.
Sequence things.
Plus you
can
can match
put it together.
You can't match them
to something else.
Yeah, some of you are basically saying it. Very often you make cuts based on words. Think of seeing red. Or you write narrations that will lead into actualities. I think at the end of my narration, I say blah, 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 people who made that decision. That's my narration. The first word the woman says is, it was a decision I had to make. Well, that didn't just happen that way. I knew that was the first piece. I knew my narration, when I got down to writing the final narration, was going to lead right into that statement. I knew exactly what the statement was because I'd written it down word for word. So I knew I decided to make a word cut, a word association. I used the word decide. She used the word decide in the same context. I think I even say it was difficult for some people to decide to be in the film or something like that. She said it was a decision I had to make. So if you don't know, if all you know is, well, there was a good statement on you know, the effects of some kind of air pollution on emphysema. Well, there was a good statement about that, but you don't really know what it was at the beginning or the end. You won't be able to structure your piece on paper. You won't really know what you have to cut with. You'll be left having to go back to it and listen to it again, which is a drag, and that will be really slow you down in editing. This logging is painstaking, but if you do it well, your editing goes like that. And I think it's better to spend your time in the logging, you know, just in the logging mode, than it is later trying to whip through all your tapes again and re-listen to stuff when you're sitting in an editing room where people want the time, right? Cheaper. If you're ever paying for it, it's much cheaper. So write it down verbatim, number the statement. This is statement 1, okay, on your notebook. Write it out. Okay, that's the end of that. Then I usually leave some space, or you can write it down so that you leave like an inch or two of space on the side, because very often you end up taking notes later, right? So you want to leave some space here and there. Or other times people do different colors, like the first time through they'll do black, and the next time through they'll do cutting on paper with red or something like that. Okay. Summarize the middle. You also should be thinking about what can go. I mean, sometimes people will be on a great statement and then they'll like digress, but then they'll hit their stride again. And at least in film, and I'm sure in video too, you can cut that out. You know, you don't have to worry about it. You can find a cutaway or a way to get around it, cut to somebody else, make a jump cut, whatever. So, now, I use the STAR method of figuring out a way to remind myself later, possibly even weeks later or months later, of what was really the best about this interview. Because you're going to end up with quite a few pages. If you do a half hour or 45-minute or an hour interview, you're going to end up with quite a few pages of material, right? And if you've numbered, let's say, 20 statements the person made that are good, and you haven't ever noted which were really good, you're going to probably have to go back and listen to it all over again. So what I do is, you know, if something is absolutely either right on the point or so concise or so terrific that I know I want to use it, or I'm very close to knowing I want to use it, I will give it 2 stars. If it's like really good and I probably want to use it, I use 1 star. And if it's just sort of good and would be useful, I give it no stars. And if I think it won't be useful at all, I don't bother to log it. Okay. I might just write a little note in between of what the subject, if they went off into something I don't think I'm going to use, I might write down just sort of what they talked about. Because you never know. You might need that stuff later. Okay, so you can use stars, you can use colors, whatever, but it's extremely useful again later in honing in on what's your best stuff. Because what's going to happen when you get into editing, you'll have, generally speaking, you'll have so much material that there's no way you're going to use all 20 statements that initially you thought were potentially going to be in your piece. You're going to use 4 of those statements or 5 of those statements, something like that. And this helps you zoom right in on them. Same with actuality stuff, by the way. You know, I'm sure when Nancy and Kenji came back from shooting at that ranch for probably several days, they looked at all their actuality stuff. And they, like, starred those little moments. You can imagine the one of the little girl getting up on the horse, that got 4 stars, right? And the girl, you know, shooting the injection, that got probably 2 stars or whatever. They went through and they looked at all the stuff and they started. And they figured out where that stuff begins and ends, too. So you do it with both. Okay. Good. Then you can begin to, you're still working on paper. And not doing anything in the editing room yet, other than just listening. You begin to group your statements. Group your good material, we'll say, because it might not be just statements. Group your good material. Okay. This is where your real creativity starts coming in, right? You begin to look over your notes. You've got 3, 4 interviews. You've got a bunch of actuality. You've got some ideas floating around about music and charts and maps that would be helpful. You maybe begin to think about narration that could weave this stuff together. You begin to see connections. It begins to sort of come together for you. So this is where you begin to sort of like make on a separate sheet, begin to group the statements and sort of hang together, you know. These 4 or 5 statements are all on land use. Boom, put them on a page on land use, along with maybe the actualities you have on this. These are all about, you know, the bad guys in the situation, whoever they are. Put them on. Begin to group them so you see what you got. Okay. This is where you go back and go back to the idea again. Remember I said you're going to constantly be refining this. go back to the statement that you wrote on your idea, and you really refine it. Now here's a point to really begin to fight vagueness. Fight bad spelling. Fight vagueness. At this point, you don't just want to think about, well, I have some good stuff on this. You really have to get real specific about what you have and in what order it's going to be. You begin to think about, where am I really going to begin this, probably? What's going to happen then? How am I going to end it? What really groups together? I always think in terms of both the logic of the piece and also the entertainment value of the piece. You can tell by, you saw a little bit of Seeing Red. It's giving you a lot of information, but it's also entertaining. So same with Cowgirls. There's enough in there we laugh, you know, we enjoy certain things. Other things are a little more informational. There's like peaks and valleys in our interest. You begin to think in terms of the entertainment value as well as of the logic. Okay, now, this is where you do your first paper edit. And I, again, feel strongly that you don't start editing. You don't just get in the editing room and start throwing things together. You do a paper edit of the whole piece as best as you can at this point. You know, you're going to start with, you know, statement 1 from interview 3, and then you're going to go to statement 4 from interview 6, and then you're going to have a little musical bridge, and then you're going to have some stills, whatever it is. Put it all down on paper. Well, let's see. We'll start up here. I want to talk to you a little bit more now about a specific thing, which is blocks. I think sometimes for beginners especially, structural editing in documentary is really a mystery. You know, in fiction you have a script. You follow the script, you tell the story, you know, you shoot the scenes, you cut them together, and you cut them to the script. But with documentary, there is no script, really. You know, you take all this stuff and you create the story. So this notion of sort of blocking can be very helpful. It helps you see what goes together, where you need transitions, where you need more information, how to make the whole thing work. Now what I want to do is go back. We're talking about blocking. Eject. Oh, what I want to do is get, let's see, the beginning of If It Bleeds. Is that here? Right there. Oh, good.
You know what, though, I dubbed it, I don't know if I had time to rewind, so you might have to rewind it.
You did. So we'll do that right now. I know what I can do in the meantime. We're just going to look at a little of it again, not the whole thing, because I want you, particularly those who have never done much documentary editing, to begin to think about what is a block. How to notice when a block begins and ends, and how to notice how blocks get joined, how transitions are made. It's a very, very important sort of creative element is how you make your transitions. Do you have a question? Nope. You were just about to say something. While we're rewinding those.
Blocks usually up around 2 in the morning.
Yeah, creative blocks. That's a different kind of block, right? Fatigue blocks. Let me just mention this to you. I don't know if some of you, I'll just make a little pitch for my film, which is playing in town right now. Last night was the benefit for MCAT, and I hope they earned some money. You did, good. It's no longer a benefit, but it would be great if you come see it. It's playing in the 7 o'clock show the whole week. I have more of these, and I passed some out last night to people who came last night, because it's a good film. You'd like it if you're interested in producing video. You know, you'd find it fun. It's playing this week. If you work somewhere where, you know, 3 or 4 people might see it, if you stick it up on the fridge at work or on the bulletin board, or, you know, where you go to school, whatever, that kind of thing. If you have places like that, it would be a great help to us. We don't have the money to buy, you know, TV ads and all that kind of stuff. But we do have people like you to help spread the word. So I would ask you when you leave, if you'd like to do that, just take a few of those with you. Is it back? It's done. Okay, let's start again. We should keep the lights up this time, I think.
Does it have color bars or anything?
It probably does. Why don't you put it on fast forward?
It bleeds.
To Alive News Midday. Joe
Turn down the
Smith
sound.
with sports and the weather scene forecast.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Barbara Kerr.
Good afternoon and welcome to 22 Alive News Midday for a Monday.
Hold it up higher.
Dayton police say charges will be filed in an accident this morning that left one woman hospitalized. Police say a man driving a pickup truck struck a Toyota headed east on Street High.
Accident this afternoon took the life of a young
A
man.
beaten man was shot to death today, and police are trying to find out who
Before
did
the
it.
mother could stop, she had run over the girl. Both were taken to Good Samaritan.
I lost control and slammed into an apartment
The
building.
79-year-old wife was found dead on the living room floor. The unofficial cause of death is strangulation.
Okay, what's the purpose of this beginning? Hook you, what else?
Tells you what the film's about.
Yeah.
Make you aware.
Tells you who told you, and oh, local TV news, something to do with local TV news. You see that right away. Then you have this sort of collage of different stories, ending, I think, so cleverly on the cause of death was strangulation. I mean, the most, and it kind of fades out at that point. Nice little collage, kind of, it's not hard, those, between those little sound bites, which by the way, you notice are played over black screen.
Right.
Perfectly okay. Nothing wrong with a black screen.
They use a lot.
Mhm.
Works real well.
Yeah. Those are, did you notice the transitions between those little sound bites are, they're mixed.
Faded,
Yeah. Or segued, you could say. They're not hard cut. I want you to begin to notice the difference between a hard cut and a segue, I guess I'll call it. What do you guys call it around here?
We just call it fades, you know, when you fade.
Fades.
Mhm.
Well, there's dissolves too, though.
Yeah.
Blends. I call them
Blends. You call them blends. People have different words for them. They mean something different. We're going to talk more about that. But those are blended, let's say. Those are dissolved. Do you see why? Did you notice that? That they weren't hard cut. They could have been. That was a choice that the makers made. Why are they blended? I'd be curious to hear from somebody who's not a producer. I mean, not a heavy-duty producer
I
like a
think
few of you
they
are.
want you to get more of a feel of it than to hear the information that's being presented in the
Yeah, I think that's part. I mean, they could have presented the entire bite, but that would have been too long, and you don't really need that. But why, instead of just cutting them together, but cut one after the other? Maybe I should go back on this. Why?
So make them all seem like they're the same, but they're all different?
That's how we hear it, and they all run together for us. They all
It's sort
blend,
of
all
saying
the
that, isn't it?
stories
Yeah.
blend together for us.
It can begin to. I want to just, so people may not be quite aware of what we're talking about here. Now listen for the way these are combined.
Pickup truck struck a Toyota headed east on Street High.
They overlap, right?
Took the life of a young
A beaten
man.
man was shot to death today,
Overlaps.
and police are trying to find out who
Before
did
the
it.
mother could stop,
Overlaps.
she had run over the girl.
They're not
Both were
butt
taken
cut.
to Samaritan.
I lost control and slammed into an
The
apartment building.
79-year-old wife was found dead on the living room floor. The unofficial cause of death is strangulation.
It's great. Dead on the living room floor. I mean, that's the best example of all
Unofficial
these.
cause of death.
Yeah, strangulation, right. I think they're trying to create a sense that this is all around us. It's sort of all, one blends into the other.
Ties it in.
It ties them in together. They all sort of blend together in our minds, as you said. If they had hard cut them, it's more jarring, actually. This is a little more, it's like a cocoon around us. It's sort of this hum around us. If it's butt cut, hard cut, it's more like we're in and out of it. And it creates a different feeling. And that's a choice. Every single cut you ever make, you have choices, whether you want it to fade out, fade up, butt cut, hard cut, whether you want that cut to be fast, you know. I'm trying to think of what's an example of what we just saw. Oh, here's a nice little moment. You remember whether you want it to be fast or slow cut? Remember the moment in Cowgirls? We have some nice music going on, we hear some narration. It's early on in the little piece. And the music kind of ends, fades down, the narration ends, fades down, and we see the little girl's sounds of yelling as they jump off those abutments kind of comes up, right? It kind of pushes its way right in. It pushes us out of that mode of we're hearing narration and pushes us into that real scene. And it happens pretty quickly, right? It's almost like their sound pushes out the other sound. Well, that was a choice. I mean, they could have let you watch the scene for a while and then hear that nice little yell, right? It's a choice. Every single cut you make, you think about where you make it, okay? And how you make it, okay? We're not talking blocks yet. We're not quite into blocks. This is like, to me, a kind of a tease and a kind of setting of the environment and honing you in on the subject matter without, again, announcing it in a narration. There is narration here, but the narration doesn't serve the purpose of telling us what the piece is about. This stuff does, which, of course, the filmmakers decided and gathered. Okay. Now notice how she'll come right in the middle of a statement.
I really began thinking about it a couple years ago when Channel 7 here in town
But we know what she's
had
talking about,
an
right?
aired
Pretty much.
videotape of a shooting at Duffers Bar. A man had been in there wielding a gun. There was a police standoff, and the man was shot to death. It so happened that a Channel 7 photographer was on his way home, I believe, 'cause it's right near the station, and was there with his camera and started rolling and had it all, including the moments the man died. Well, there was a lot of hoopla. They took a lot of phone calls. They took a lot of criticism. But it occurred to me at that time that maybe we're doing things backwards. I mean, we show all these shows on TV, Miami Vice, Chelsea Blues, Bang Bang, Shoot 'em Up Violence, nobody thinks a word about it. But suddenly, show something real, people go, oh, you can't show that, I don't want to see
Too
that.
tight, in my opinion.
Maybe we're doing it backwards. Maybe we're not getting across
Yeah.
the point.
It's not fair to her,
Real
really.
life, real people get hurt. Real people bleed. Real people die.
Plus, she's making a good point.
Boom, okay, so then we go to black screen after that. Notice this
Yes.
transition.
Real people die every day. And every day, TV news is there. Out of all the events that occur in a day, why do personal tragedies qualify as news? Are we being informed, or is television just giving us a chance to gather at the scene of an accident and stare at the victim?
I want to go into the next piece, but then we'll go back. Okay. Just a little bit more. Okay. Pause here. So, I would say the last two pieces we just saw, I'll tell you, are to me a block. Okay? It's a very simple block. The piece the piece of interview, I really began to think about it one day. It was this example that happened at a bar. What's wrong with showing it? Real people do die. The world is not pretty, whatever she says. Okay? Strong statement. Following that, we have a very soft transition. You know, these kind of neutral city shots come up. The narrator is pretty laid back, pretty reasoned sounding. He's not appearing to be arguing with her, but in fact, he's responding to what she just said. And he's setting up, that's her declarative opening salvo, you could say, and then that's the filmmaker's opening salvo. That's a little block. We're now setting up the questions of the piece. Isn't this legitimate news? Is it legitimate news? Is it something we need to see? Okay, that's a little block. It's a simple little block. It sets up a conflict. Subtly, it sets up a conflict right away in our minds. I don't think we would stop and think about that, but it does. It sets up the two poles. Okay, now this, if you notice, do you think this is actuality or setup? It's setup, yeah. We fooled you. I want to point this out because, you know, I pretty much remember that the filmmakers needed a way to sort of get you into the next scene, which was a wonderful scene, which was the actual news camera person gathering the story, right? And they decided they didn't just want to have him rushing down the street. They already had that. Remember, in a minute you're going to see him rushing down the street and there's the accident and so forth. They wanted a transition, but they didn't have one. So, when they were doing their second treatment, when they were going back to their idea and looking at their paper cut, they thought about, well, we got a problem here. You know, what are we going to do? We don't really have a transition. So, they came up with the idea. They said, well, what we're really about next time is we want to watch this guy on the street. Our first block is going to be about news gathering. Take us right into the scene. So they decided, let's go and shoot him starting up his day. And he said, okay. In fact, I think he even gave him some suggestions for the shots, as I recall.
Stare at the victim.
This kind of a shot here, by the way, is a dead giveaway. This is not an actuality shot. This is perfectly framed, you know. He opens the door right on cue. Camera's on a tripod. That's set up. This close-up, they don't accidentally get a shot like that. I mean, you don't just like happen to be shooting and get a shot like that. This too, it's cut like a feature. This is like feature film thinking. These few shots. Now from here on in, they had this. They had him from the car on, but they didn't have the transition. So they thought and it's perfectly okay, I believe, and I want to point this out to you, for you to construct something. For you to think, well, we need 3 or 4 shots to get us here. Or, you know, we really could use a shot of a book. Or, you know, of somebody's yearbook, or somebody's, whatever, a calendar. You know, you can think about those things. Very often, after you get your first paper edit done, you'll have all kinds of holes, right? And your creative job is to figure out, well, problems, right? But you know how it is. When you have problems, that's when your creative juices really get flowing. And you do some of your neatest stuff. So that's what they did. It's okay to construct stuff.
In the world of
okay.
being a
Did they
television
focus
maker.
on the camera because that is a tool of the controversial?
You mean later did they focus on
No,
the cameraman?
when they did the setup.
Why did they choose him as
Now,
opposed to?
why did they focus on the camera? I mean, is that because in their minds that is the tool of
You mean why, in the later scene, do we see them shooting? Is that what you mean?
No, when
why
did they
is
set
it
up?
sure
You
of
mean
the?
The deck?
Yeah,
It's a deck, it's not a camera, yeah.
Oh, the deck, yeah.
It's the deck. Why do they use, I think,
Just showing him set up.
it's showing him setting up. I mean,
Yeah.
he has to make, it's like a little technical, I mean, they wouldn't show the camera because he wouldn't go out with the camera. It'd be all in a case.
Yeah.
That's something he just threw in the back. It was a nice close-up. He checks it, whoop, he zips it up. It's just like he shows he's a professional, he operates crisply, he's on his job, he's working fast, you know.
Actually, he did the most important thing. He put tape in the recorder.
Yeah, I noticed people laughing with that, yeah, right. Yeah.
Batteries.
Yeah, but it's cut very crisply, you know, you feel like there's a bit of a rush involved here. And then he gets in his car, he's checking where he's supposed to go, and boom, he's off. Okay, then, now, we are now into a new block. Right, we're out of the block of setting up the question. We're now into a new block, which is mainly an actuality block, right? And this block, well, let's look a little further. Right. So we've seen him get in his car. Now here he is.
Good in the viewer, whether horrifying or
Well,
not.
And we're out of what you call
Richard Fenner is a videographer.
This is an interview, yeah.
With
we gotta
keeping the
set up
environment in
actuality.
Set up interview. And you notice how they use an eloquent background. They could have just sat him in a chair with a plant behind him, but this is much better.
I really don't think about all the urgency in front of me, except how do I capture that?
Just a little transition there. The sound comes over first. Very nice. A little bit of editing there. Okay.
Urgency in front of me.
It brings you into the next scene, right? Transition. But we're still in the same basic block.
There is some kind of energy that you carry around all day to get you to the scene first.
You tell me when you think we're in the next block. You think this block is
What
over.
we shoot is usually fast, sweet, and sometimes it's like hamburger, the meat market. Just cut, bang, 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 it's done. In this town, it's hard to fill up a half an hour or an hour. And if they have a car accident where someone is trapped, instantly good visuals. And it steps up the program.
Dayton police say charges will be filed.
You think this is a new block?
No.
Is it or not? You think it is? It's the same accident, actually.
Yeah.
Within, you know something, this is a good point, because it's a mini, yeah, he knows these terms. Within, I mean, if you look upon it, I mean, the entire piece is one block. Within that block, there are actually only 3 or 4 big blocks, right? There's a little intro, there's this whole sequence on news gathering, there's a sequence on the ethics, the ratings, the sort of more philosophical side. Then there's a long block about that one story, the drowning story. That's about half the film. So there's really, and then there's a little ending piece. There's really only mega blocks, there's really only maybe 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. But within those blocks, then there's smaller blocks. And so you're right, this is in a sense within the bigger block we're looking at here. How is this story covered? We're in a separate block, but to me it's still part of the same overall block. I want to know when we're in a new block, a totally new subject block.
On the Gettysburg, he struck a Toyota headed east.
We do an awful lot of car accidents.
It's still about the gathering
They're
part, right?
exploitive, sense that people's lives that we're touching, and they don't need to be touched.
The investigation.
Yeah.
The station manager coming on there.
How do you
Yeah,
decide
there
what
we
you
go.
broadcast on the news?
Of course, Richard.
You have to be responsible.
That's a new block, right. Okay, now, how was the transition made between those 2 blocks?
It was a hard cut. This
Yeah,
one here.
It was a hard cut, it was a total hard cut. There's no narration, there's no little bit of music, there's no soft edit, it's a hard cut, it's a butt cut, right? I want you to make you aware, that's the choice that was made here. And I say, why not? I mean, the 2 fit together, there's not really a need, you don't put anything, you don't put a transition in just to put a transition in, you put one in if you need it. And you didn't really need one here. Somebody said, I don't trust him. Now, do the filmmakers make you not trust him, or does he hang himself?
I think he hangs himself.
Yeah, he hangs himself. I think he hangs himself.
They help him a little bit.
Smoking.
How do you think they help him?
Yeah, they did.
Because they don't, editing isn't as concise as, it's like they edited the reporter in a more reporterly manner
You
in
mean
the
the
short
videographer,
statements.
the guy? Or the
No,
woman?
the editors of the piece, they let him go. They
This
let
guy.
him hang himself. Yeah, the statements are longer. They let him do his ums and ahs and, you know, thinking on camera.
And let him
as
keep the
opposed
cigarette.
to-
Yeah, well,
But
that's.
but you look at him there, at his pose, he's relaxed in a big chair, he could care less, the phone rings, the money comes in, and go home.
Right, well, that's your take on him.
Yeah, but how far into the interview does this come, too?
Yeah, and what if you made the shot tighter? You don't see his environment.
Yeah.
What does that do?
Which says something about sometimes using a wide shot, right? I mean, I agree with you. If this shot were like this, you might feel better about him. If all you saw was him like this.
Yeah, and they take the videographer and they put him in this room with all this fancy equipment, and he looks powerful and can
And
control
he's
it.
edited, yeah, and I think you're more sympathetic toward the videographer than you are toward this guy. The videographer's sort of doing his job, and he's honest about it. He said it's like hamburger out there. I mean, he's pretty straight. I think they portray, I mean, I think you're hearing what they feel about him. I mean, knowing these people, I also agree with them about these folks. I think this is great that it's a wide shot. You see his cigarette, you see his costume, his jewelry, you know, his big pushy chair. Those days you still had typewriters. We have a computer now. You know, I think it's a lot his, I mean, it is his environment, but it's also him, that he slides around things, he makes excuses, you know.
He's wearing suspenders too, and he looks like Geraldo.
There you go. That's bad, right. Now, let's go back to, what's that?
I said even, you know, letting him go with,
Yeah.
with whatever he was saying. He just totally.
He really is, more than the woman reporter, who really puts up a strong argument. I mean, you contend with this woman. She's smart. This guy's sort of slimy to me. You know, he slides around things. He's management. Sorry if there's any management. I want to go back to the scene we just saw. Okay, now when you might shoot a scene, an actuality scene just like this, right? What, in doing your lot, what do you think those makers thought? Well, this is the key. This is the heart moment of this scene. Often when you do actuality scenes, you look at it that way. What is like? Okay, what's the key shot that's going to make this scene work? A few shots. What do you think?
In the accident you're talking about?
In the accident scene that we just saw, while we're
Oh,
talking
it's
about
showing
this.
what he shot. Walker is news director at Channel 41.
No, what I mean is, on this scene here.
They're showing the three cameramen all lined
Showing
up.
Yes.
their behavior,
Yes.
but they're like vultures on this.
Yeah, and when you see that best, I'm not talking about this, this little scene. When they shot this, what do you think?
Down there.
That shot is an excellent shot. It really
Oh,
said
right.
that in and of itself, and there it is again. Now watch what they do with the sound during this, okay? There is voiceover, right?
Some kind of.
Here is footsteps, that's added later.
Carry around all day to get you to.
They didn't have sound here, they didn't take sound. All the sound is added. Now watch, okay. All the people are watching, you notice this? What we see is everybody craning their necks to look. Because he just said, are we just standing around to stare at the victim? Is that what we're doing? We see people watching, okay. And then, bingo, there's the big shot. Now watch. They're not narrating over that shot, are they? Too important. You want to be right in there. You want to be right in there as the gurney's being whirled in.
Fast, sweet, sometimes it's like hamburger, the meat market.
And the juxtaposition of the hamburger with an injured person is pretty strong, right?
That one there.
They're not narrating over this either. Now think about this when you're doing your stuff.
In this town, it's hard to fill
Make your great moments really shine.
And if they have a car accident where someone is trapped, instantly good visuals. And it steps up the program.
You know, you can see these, I remember this day very well. These guys went out to get, I mean, they had never shot before. And you notice how it's like zooming all over the place and swimming all around. They thought somehow that you could, like, hand hold an Arriflex or whatever they were shooting with, zoom all the way out to 120, right, and manage to get a shot that was stable, which of course you can't. But they managed with just they shot tons, and but they only had a few shots that were stable, but they managed to cut something together that works, which I think is a lot because they had those few really good shots right in the middle. Okay, so you see what I mean by a block? It's units of material that hang together that are on the same subject, right? And you have within a block. I mean, obviously the editors had to figure out, well, within that little actuality block, right, from what time the guy arrives at the accident to whenever they're going to end it, they had to decide exactly in what order the shots were going to come, right? The smallest block is a shot. The smallest unit is a single shot, right? So ultimately, what you do is you can, I hope this is helpful sort of in thinking in terms of blocks. I don't know if this is becoming clear to you or not, what I mean. What blocks are. And they can be combinations of actuality with narration, with charts and graphs, with whatever. They don't have to just be one kind of material. This is where once you have all your material on paper, you can kind of draw together and see, well, what will make up this block about news gathering? And the next subject which we saw introduced is more on the ethics of the whole thing. And that goes on for the next 5 minutes or so. And there's, again, various bits of material in there, interview material. They also throw in that really, another little, as my students would say, cherry piece they had, I hate that term, they said, was that little piece about the weather, that little tiny fun, which we all laughed, oh, well, if it's spring or summer, the weather's no bummer. And that's just in there. I mean, it has really almost nothing to do with what's going on, but they just knew that was a funny piece. It kind of fits with how inane, news can be. And it's just in there to give you a little humorous break in the middle of a rather weighty section, right? About the ethics and the ratings and the money and all that. Okay.
Do you have any guidelines for how long a block should be so that you're not, especially if you're working with two different points of view, back, forth, or do you just sort of let a story be told and then get into the contradictions?
Well, blocks by the way aren't necessarily kind of contradictory blocks. In this case, the first block had a contradiction in it. Blocks are sort of units of storytelling.
Right, but do you have are there any guidelines for how long each of those blocks so that you don't break up?
Hard to say, if you're doing a 15-minute piece or if you're doing an hour-long piece, your blocks could be longer in a longer piece. I always think it's important to check out the boredom level on the part of your audience, through testing. I guess I would say it would depend. It's hard to answer that. Really, it depends on so many things. So I won't answer that. Sorry. Okay. Good. So now we talked about blocks. We talked about transitions. We talked about different kinds of cuts. Okay. Oh yeah, structure. Somebody once said, talk about it this way. The structure is the skeleton on which you hang, like the flesh and blood of the piece, right? Your structure, which is what you're going for here at this point, your paper edit, your structure. Okay, now, once you get your paper edit, and you understand the concept of blocks, I'm going to turn this off. And actually, the next piece we're going to have in here is, yes, what is it? I think it's wrong place, wrong time. We could go through this whole film if we had time, and I usually do, and to make it very clear where all the blocks and mini blocks and what all the transitions are and why they are the way they are. I mean, it might be interesting for you to take an assignment, take an interesting, well-layered documentary, and really diagram it out. Diagram every block, every transition, every choice that was made, and you'll learn a lot from doing that. I do that with my students with usually 1 or 2 or 3 films. Okay. Let's see, what's the next piece? Wrong place, wrong time, yeah.
Is that this one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. So now you're going to make your first attempt at really building sections and editing your blocks. I just realized that this is for sound, and I wonder how this is going to work for video, but we'll see. At this stage, before you ever go into the editing room, you need to know your ending. I want to write that down. This is always true also in script writing. In script writing, before you write, scene 1, act 1, whatever, scene 1, exterior day, whatever, you have to know the ending of your film. Okay?
Are you sure? I'm being serious.
Yeah, in almost every case. There may be a few where you don't. But when I say make a paper edit, I mean really a paper edit. And I mean really know how your film's going to end. You know why? Because the way you edit is, you start from here and you go to here. And you get there as fast as you possibly can. Right? You don't waste a minute doing that. If you don't know where you're going, you just start heading out. Well, where are you going? You're going to go all over the place before you finally figure out where here is. I'm not saying you don't do rough edits. You don't do experimental edits. You don't try an ending that doesn't work. But you need to know where you are going at this point. And you get there as fast as you can. I really believe this. And I think one of the big problems with a lot of people's early the documentary stuff is that it's vague, it's structureless, it's flat, right? It doesn't have entertainment value.
Emma was having last night.
What's that? Yeah,
She
right.
didn't know her ending.
She didn't know her ending. There you go. She didn't know her ending, so she couldn't make her piece. Okay. So, so you want to start to actually create your blocks. You want to start to, it's different on sound than it is on video. Because on video, you have to really go all the way through the whole piece. You don't put like block 1 on a roll, and then block 2 on a roll, and then block 3 on a roll, and then
You can take,
play around with it. You can do that. That's more what I'm used to. Is you keep what I call actualities rolls, or rolls of blocks. You edit block 1, what you think is block 1. You put it away. And you edit block 2 or another block, and then you finally have all your blocks, and then you can play with transitions and see what order they should come in. Let me just see if any of this is actually useful to you guys. At this point, when you're actually beginning to edit your blocks, your pieces together to make blocks, I would say it's time to do that internal cutting. If people go off the subject, get it out of there, because it just will confuse you in the editing later. If you got extraneous stuff in there, just get it out of there. I would say don't worry right away yet. If you're going to use a cutaway, or if you're going to make a jump cut or whatever, just get it out of there. Okay, then, once you do that, you're going to really see what your problems are. You may realize, oh, I have to gather some more material, like these people did. They needed those few shots. Oh, I need to do some more research here. I got a gap in my logic. I don't know the answer to this question that gets raised. I need to interview this person a little further. I missed on a couple questions. You see your problems, you go out and you regather. Sounds all very tedious, but if you're doing good documentary work, you usually end up with this. You go back to your treatment. You go back to this, you're writing down, I'm sorry, this paper ready, you go back to that. Put in those new elements, and then you're probably getting pretty much ready to mix. And obviously this is not a workshop where I can take you all the way through how you mix a piece. But you arrive in the studio, at least we do this in sound and video, with everything, with your music, with your blocks, with any sound effects you're going to add, with your narrations. I mean, I usually arrive with them already. I didn't actually mention when you write narration. With your narrations already written and recorded, so you can mix them in. Is that how you do it on video, or do you record them on the spot? What's that?
Normally you figure out the narration's the very last thing, narration and
Yeah,
music. You figure
very
out
much
how
toward the
much
end.
narration
Yeah. And exactly what the narration is. Because again, until you have all this stuff in order, you don't know. You may only need a sentence of narration, whereas before you thought you needed a lot. You may want to make word connections. So I always say write your narrations, but don't necessarily record them and commit to them right away, till very much at the end. Okay. So as far as this outline goes, do you have any questions for me before I go on with other stuff?
Do you use storyboards?
In documentary?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm trying to think if there's ever. Well, actually, in the case of that little transition of the guy coming down the steps and all that, if I were doing a section like that, I might storyboard it. Yeah, I would probably want to go and have an idea of how it was all going to fit together. If something that I am creating out of my imagination, kind of, then I would. But other than that, do people storyboard documentaries? I don't know.
I find it very hard because, like
You
you
don't know
said,
what-
you're not quite sure what you're after in the
Yeah.
first place. That's
Yeah,
what-
real life isn't like that. I mean, you storyboard fiction, certainly. Anything else on this? Yes?
Do any producers ever voice logs? When they log, do they ever just tape their logs as they go along? Do they always take all the time to write them all down?
Yeah, you know why? Well, I mean, when you may as well just listen to the videotape all over again. I mean, what you want to arrive at is something you can sit down on a table and, I mean, unless you have, I mean, some people maybe have the mental capacity to, like, totally piece together a half-hour documentary in their heads. I mean, I don't have that capability. You want to sit down at a table, which you do with a big old pot of coffee, and all your logs, probably Xerox. This is what I do anyway. Either you Xerox them so you can cut them up, cut the statements up, put them together, tape them on pieces of paper, tape in your little scribbled down narrations, tape in little things, and you make a little book of your piece. Literally a paper. When I say a paper edit, I mean a paper edit. You cut stuff up, tape it down. That's how I do it. How do you guys do it? How do you teach people to do paper? Something like that? Yeah. Some people like to put their stuff on cards, which is very useful, I think. If you're doing a big, complicated documentary, to put those statements on index cards so that you can shuffle them around. You can put them up, on a bulletin board, and then look at it That can be real useful. And then say, well, actually, this would be good over here. You know, it's an easy way to kind of see the whole thing.
Also, on a series I worked on, I pulled the computer in right next to the machine.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful. You set it with all a disk, and then you can play with it.
My partner Steve does that. He uses his Mac, but I'm completely illiterate on the computer, so I'm with index cards. I do use index cards.
And on that paper edit thing, I mean, what we've done too is have 3 columns. I mean, you haven't been talking music at all, and that always
Not
comes
too
in
much.
at the anyway.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
still, I mean, you got your narrative and your scenes, your images, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
it's
that's a
two
good point.
It's 2 complete, columns, so you know what it is that you're saying or what's going on here, and then here's the image you need to go.
That's true. I sort of skipped over that, but I guess I'm running out of Blackboard. I'm out of Blackboard here again, so. But really, when your paper edit or your final edit, you will indicate if you need like footsteps, if you want to have a telephone ringing, if you want to have a little musical bridge that's just a simple guitar piece where that goes, any kind of sound effects, whatever. You log that usually right alongside the visual side. That's sort of what you need, right?
Yeah, well, that's why I had 3.
What's your
because there-
third?
Well, there's 3, there's 1 narrative.
Narrations,
Well, what's being
okay.
said,
Yeah.
the vocals. And 2 was the image.
Yeah.
The different scenes.
Yeah.
And then 3 was music or sound effects, things that, augment that whole thing.
Right. Yeah. Which actually provides a great segue into this next piece. And then what we're going to do is, this is about a 10-minute piece. Then we can have any wrap-up kind of questions, if I think of anything else. But a number of people have actually brought their own work to show us little pieces of. Some of it is work that has problems they want to help get solved. Others just for us to see, little 5-minute pieces. And I think it would be great for us all to, to spend the last while looking at some of that. So that's what we have to look forward to. Now, this is a piece that I like a lot, which is called Wrong Place, Wrong Time. It was made by 2 filmmakers near San Francisco. It's film. One of the reasons I wanted to show it to you is I think, first of all, it's beautifully crafted. It's very simply crafted, but remember I talked about you want to work for poetry, you want to work for something that really sings, it's really beautiful to watch. This is a great model for that. It's also still very simple. The elements in it are quite simple. I also think often we are overly reliant on sync sound. I think especially in video and in film too. We are overly reliant on, people talking right at us, right? And that is actually one of the least efficient ways of communicating information, right? It's just somebody talking at you.
And it's in the movie. Yeah,
Yes.
sync is a 4-letter word.
Yeah, no, that wasn't for that reason actually, because I can never get things to stay in sync on film. So this piece has no sync sound. Let's see, what do I want to tell you? I don't want to tell you anything about it, actually. Other than that, I have no
On
sync
that
sound.
note.
Yeah, and it's won tons of film festivals.
Out that. I went to a movie that night.
Sorry.
I was working actually. I was managing the camera.
No, you're on. Oh, wrong button, okay. Will that go to play now?
Yeah.
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 Well, okay. No, it's doing something weird.
Oh,
She
like-
pushed slow.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
I went out that. I went to a movie that night. I was working actually. I was managing the catering. Me and Barbara were at home when Joy called. So about midnight or so, right? 12:33.
I was working at some big show, a band playing or something. I was working the door taking money, and these 2 people came in and they had just been at the York Theater. They start telling this really awful story about this young guy who's been shot. This guy in an overcoat and a beret. And then the girl goes, yeah, he lived on Shotwell Street. And I went, Shotwell? And I was like, no way though, but I said, Shotwell Street, I know someone who lives on Shotwell. And then she goes, yeah, I think his last name was Moses and he was 23 years old.
I know that he was proud of his work if he wasn't always